Today on Locked On Phoenix Suns, not the result anyone was hoping for against the Boston Celtics. But does that erase the 4-game win streak before that? Which is closer to the reality of what we should expect from this Suns team the rest of the way? We'll debate it next.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Phoenix Suns. I'm Brendon, Kleen, a staff writer at Awful Announcing and a credentialed Suns media member. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen here on... Is it a game day Friday? Yes, it is. Don't forget, Locked On Suns, free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So click that follow or subscribe button. Do what thousands of other Suns fans have already done. Become an everydayer and get locked on to the Phoenix Suns right here each and every day. Today's episode is brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Joining me, as always, from the Wild West Valley, my fellow Suns credentialed media member. How are we feeling on this Friday, Ben Garcia?
So good. What would you say the best sports month is? Just off the top of your head.
October, probably.
October, got World Series, base or football or playoff baseball. A little bit of basketball going on, but
Beginning of the NBA season. Yeah.
Super beginning of the NBA season. But listen, man, March is a little underrated. NBA playoffs coming up, opening day today. U of A and Duke are currently playing right now. So we're in the thick of what is a great sports month. So I'm doing great, man. I'm doing so good.
I am doing great as well. We got a lot to get to today. I am back here with you. Thank you for covering on the Suns Celtics recap show. But we're going to dip back into that game, which was, of course, a big-time ugly loss for the Suns by 30 points. As well as all the games that came before that. You know, the Suns are still winners of, 5 out of 7 games. And they had a 4-game win streak. And now this. So, obviously no one was pleased with how yesterday's game went, but it's the defending champions. It is a team we know the Suns were going to struggle against. We talked about that in the lead up to it, that it's just a roster that really poses issues. So, where do you kind of fall on that spectrum, Ben? Do you feel like yesterday's game throws everything out the window, or do you think this is maybe still a different team than December, January, February?
It is a super cop-out answer, so I'm happy you asked me first to say somewhere in the middle. I want to pick a side, stick to it. I don't think they're as bad as the Boston Celtics made them look last night. You were at that game. You were at it as a fan, going with your wife and everything, and, just took a little bit of a sabbatical and wish you could have went to a better game, but that wasn't the case last night. The first 7 shots from the Boston Celtics last night were 3-pointers, or first 8 of them, and they made 7 of them, or something ridiculous. And they got up 21-7 quickly on the Suns. Part of that is the Suns' fault that they're just not getting out on shooters early in that game and letting Boston get hot, but call it what it is. Last night when I was doing, what did we learn? There's the ceiling on the Suns, but the Celtics are just a buzzsaw. So I'm going to lean towards the Suns are what they were a week and a half ago. I think that they're a better team that I still think poses a threat in a few games in the playoffs. Again, I mentioned last night, I don't think the Thunder want to see the Suns. It doesn't mean the Thunder aren't going to absolutely beat the Suns. But I do think the Suns, because of Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, can win 2 games out of nowhere. So I think the Suns are closer to that team. But I think what you saw last night, I phrased it as bringing a plastic knife to a Boston Celtics fight, or, for lack of a better term, Colin Gillespie to a defending championship fight. And you got the doors blown off you. But I will lean towards the Suns are mostly what they were over the past week and a half. What about you?
Here's how I'll put it. And I'm just going to let your weird Thunder hate slide. We'll have that debate if it ever comes to it.
Thunder
I just really don't get
it.
I do not understand that you keep doing that. But
I
Um,
hate being called a hater, man. They're great. They're great.
they're
Anyways,
not worried about the Phoenix Suns.
I
they're not
don't think they're
even
not
they're not even
worried.
thinking about the
Worried
Suns.
and don't want to see them are two different things.
Okay.
Meaning,
I think
the
they'd love
Suns
to see
could.
the Suns. Let me put it. I'll put it in your terms then. They'd be ecstatic to see the Phoenix Suns.
The Kings are the Suns, and they'd rather see the
No, not the
Suns.
Kings. I mean, those are the 9 and 10 seeds. Right now, it's the Warriors and the Wolves. If you told them, hey, you don't have to play the Warriors or the Wolves, you get to play the Suns, they'd say, give me a bib. I'm digging in. This is delicious.
I mean, I'd rather play the Warriors than the Suns. I think the Suns
All right,
are more dangerous than this. Anyways, sorry.
We'll see if they even get there. But here's how I would put it with the Celtics. And the Thunder, the reason I keyed in on that is I think it's very similar. I think that these two teams are both huge matchup problems for the Suns in a very similar way. And I guess the way that I would put it is I still buy that the Suns are better than their worst points of this season. But last night's game, I think, was almost like a reminder of, more than anything, why the 9-2 start was fake. I know that's a little bit of a misdirection on the question, but if you follow me, like, they are fundamentally not capable of competing in the modern NBA. They do not have the juice. They do not have the roster to do what the Celtics do. Like you mentioned, those threes. Those threes were being created. Yeah, okay, it looks ugly when you allow an open three. You're always going to want to, punch a hole in the wall when you're a fan, and you see that over and over. That's because the Suns couldn't guard the ball. And they have to panic and over-rotate and collapse. And then all of a sudden you have Nick Richards trying to gallop out to, freaking Sam Hauser on a breakdown because the Suns are in such a lurch trying to, holy crap, Jaylen Brown broke our whole defense down with one dribble because they just do not have the personnel to match up with the team like that. And so that's where I went. I was just like, this is just a reminder that the ceiling on the Suns is so low. And I hate to say that, whatever, but we knew it. However, I do still buy that as long as the rotation of this team continues to be what it has been, and obviously there's the looming Bradley Beal thing. He's still going to be out Friday, we heard before we hit record here. As long as the rookies still play and Gillespie can continue to be impactful and some of these role players step up the way that they have, I think that they've fixed their worst points, but they're not a team that you should expect to beat a Cleveland or a Milwaukee on every single night. And I just don't think they're up there with the best of the best teams.
I'm happy that we have some common ground there. That was like the main takeaway that I had from yesterday, which was, hey, listen, this team, even with this roster and playing as well, even with this rotation and who they were playing the past couple weeks and playing fairly well, there's a clear ceiling on this. So if you thought for any reason the Suns had found themselves and they were going to go into the next round and give the Thunder some fits, and who God only knows, this is not going to happen because it sides with the Thunder hate that you're accusing me of, but somehow beat the Thunder and have this incredible run. Like that bubble and that dream was shattered last night. What I would ask you is this. Do you think the Suns will use last night as an excuse to toggle with the roster in terms of not more so we'll talk about in the next segment, but like Bradley Beal? Do you think they were just kind of waiting for, all right, now's the time we can toggle some things a bit? Because maybe Colin Gillespie probably isn't best for this team right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's still a spot for somebody like Gillespie, but I hear what you're saying. I think you're saying that in a way where Beal, I think the best version of Beal actually should help you against a team like Boston more than some of these players did, like Gillespie or Grayson Allen in particular. Sorry, they do have something in common. I hate to be that guy, but it's just whatever. Beal, I think the length and athleticism that he theoretically has when he's really at his peak, like that would have been a better matchup. But I mean, I think that's what you're asking. But as far as big picture, like summer roster changes? I mean, that answer is absolutely yes. I mean, that should be a wake up call for Matt Ishbia, Josh Bartleston, and James Jones to say we have to really rethink what we thought this is going to look like.
I mean, I can save my thoughts on that until after this weekend. Maybe we'll have some clear clarity. But with the question was that, you answered it, where I worry that the Suns, obviously, maybe I'm wrong because they already ruled out Bradley Beal for tomorrow's game, but that they were kind of waiting for this bubble to pop so that they could go back to what they think is the best roster for the Suns, which is Bradley Beal, which is Grayson Allen, which is less Colin Gillespie, more Nick Richards, less Oso Ighodaro. And so I was worried about that watching last night's game, because even if they kept it close, you could say, well, I mean, what are you going to do, man? Like they kept it really close with this team. But in reality, they got blown out. And I was worried that maybe they would use that as an excuse, but no Bradley Beal tomorrow. So maybe not. Maybe we'll still continue to see the runway for this team.
Yeah, I think we're both on the same page. It's somewhere in between the best and the worst, but I think that it just puts, again, a clear ceiling on what this team can be when there are the best built modern teams you don't stand a chance against. That just really has to put into perspective what this team is capable of, where every time they run up against a team like this, they really just don't have the answers. And it's in its roster too. They just were smaller. It's really everything. All right. I do think that Oso Ighodaro acquitted himself fairly well compared to some of the other players on this team. And Nick Richards continues to look, frankly, lost too often, I think, out there on the court. Is it time to make a change at the center spot in the starting lineup? Next. First, today's show brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, and even who's cutting down the nets. Let's check it out. What is going on Friday? There's not going to be any massive favorites, but you could go some one seeds. You could do, baseball? What do we got on Friday with baseball? Money lines are tough. I like the first 5 innings stuff because you can just kind of get the starting pitchers. If you think somebody's going to get beat up on, or if you think somebody's going to be dominant, you can do like the total runs in the first 5 innings. There's a lot of stuff. Get those bonus bets in there and then have some fun. Basically found money, courtesy of FanDuel.com. Get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. Alrighty, closing out the show here. No, not closing it out. We're keeping the show rolling. I said the wrong one here. We're in segment number 2. We're talking Oso Ighodaro and Nick Richards. Because, I think I'm a little more on the side for last night's game, Ben, that Boston is just a team where, frankly, I'm not sure the Suns have a chance when that team is revving, especially with the spacing that they are able to create. The Suns just do not have the personnel to cover the ground that they need to. But I can think that and still feel like Nick Richards stood out like a sore thumb. And it's mostly because of just the awareness stuff that I think the more you watch him, the more you start to worry about. So what are your thoughts on Richards before we jump to how they could solve this?
I know the Suns, they wanted to keep it rolling with what they had, but I felt like Budenholzer should have saw around this corner a little bit. You and I talked about it the night before. Like, Richards is going to, we didn't even need to watch the game. We knew he was going to be a sore thumb, especially defensively. I mean, Richards is what he is. And I don't want to beat up on him because I feel like I had the correct expectation for Nick Richards, which was a backup center on one of the worst teams in the NBA. That was clearly still better than what the Suns had for the most part, but he's very up and down, man. He's either a net positive or Budenholzer can't trust him. He's not closing games with him, and he's only playing 19 minutes despite starting. So I don't know, man. I that trade, Nurkic and 3 second-round picks, I mean, I don't think Nick Richards is that much better than Nurkic is so far through his stint as a Sun. So, I mean, that's just ultimately where my thoughts are, like, as a whole about him. But last night was bad. Last night was pretty bad.
Here's the thing that I think the more that I watch Richards try to play with this team, a center like Nick Richards, I think in the modern NBA, he only works with certain styles of play and certain lead offensive engines. So when he was in Charlotte, he obviously developed alongside LaMelo Ball. That is a player I would put in the category that works with him. Trae Young, Luka Doncic, James Harden. High pick and roll, lob throwing, point guard type guys. What Nick Richards has to do in this offense, and not even this offense, because that makes it sound like it's more of a Bud thing. What Nick Richards has to do playing with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, who aren't guys who get downhill and barricade toward the basket and create openings for their roll man to get lob dunks and easy finishes. That's not how Book and KD play, even though they're great players, is he has to make decisions with the ball in his hands. He has to screen and space and move and have an awareness level of where these guys are around him, because it's not just screen, roll, catch, dunk. It's much more complicated and multiple different movements within a set type of action and type of responsibility. So I think it's a fit issue, and that's why I think that Oso just might make the most sense. If you're in desperation mode, if you are in, let's just milk this roster for everything that it's worth, I feel like it's time to just do that and take the lumps that you're going to take with Oso. We know there are going to be some, but I think the best fit and the best overall performance of this rotation right now is when Oso's out there, so he should just start.
Yeah, and I would ask you this, because I'm on the same page with you, especially last night. I mean, you saw Oso end up playing more minutes than Nick Richards. I wish I would have saw him even out there more earlier and often. But what's the negative of starting Oso over Nick Richards right now? Is it just he's a rookie? Bud, you pointed out the statistics a couple of games ago that just maybe doesn't want to rely too heavily on rookies. But it's not like Nick Richards is running away with the job. And if you want to continue to develop Oso, I mean, what's the net negative? Is it just rookie lumps? Because from everything I've seen from Oso, the IQ is there. It's just, I think the physical developments of himself aren't fully there yet, which is just going to come with time. And fundamentally, he'll just get better. I don't know what the negative is.
Yeah, I think that it is. It's just the size disparity that he's giving up. I mean, I think Gobert's out, but or is he out? I don't know.
I got to take a look because I'm actually not sure either.
Alperen Şengün, Isaiah Hartenstein, whatever examples you want to run through. Kristaps Porzingis, who stonewalled him on a dunk attempt at one point last night. Luke Cornett even did that. So I think it's that. And I would say that the one thing that Nick Richards in theory gives you that you're sacrificing without Oso for a team that already has its defensive weaknesses would be the rim protection. Oso's allowing a 62% shooting within 6 feet when the shots are taken and he's the closest defender. For Nick Richards, that's 58%. That's kind of like the best metric to measure how a rim protector does, not so much just with blocks, but kind of like what do they do, affecting shots and changing shots, and Richards has proven to be better there. The bottom line is this team has been at its best with Oso on the court most of the season when he's gotten an opportunity. So it really shouldn't be like we're also talking about Richards still going to play, right? So it's like, I think it's just about rewarding the guy who's been putting you in the best position and making the most of his minutes and making the fewest mistakes. And that's Oso right now.
And also, you're already small. What's giving up 2 more inches? I mean, and not only that, but I know you say it like that, like Nick Richards is still going to play. This doesn't feel like the Bradley Beal to the bench argument that we had a couple of months ago, where it was a little divided. I think most people would agree with us that in terms of energy too. And one thing that you pointed out that I started to notice as well when we were watching the games is Nick Richards plays very emotional, and a moving screen can swing his game a little bit, where Oso, who you would expect that more from a rookie, doesn't really play like that. He's very level-headed, and that's the kind of thing I would rather see as well. Like, the Suns need, if anything, consistency right now, and I think Oso as well just gives them the best chance to do so.
So one more question on this topic before we move on and get a quick look at the Houston and Minnesota games upcoming. Mason Plumlee has technically been active the past 2 games, but I think he's still coming along, recovering from whatever he was dealing with, and he hasn't gotten a shot again yet. Should it stay that way? I just said Richards is still going to play, but would you play Plumlee over Richards? Would you play all 3? Would you keep Plumlee as DNP? How would you handle him coming back?
I would DNP Plumlee. I know we just talked about some of the deficiencies of Richards, but just because of the pure athleticism, and I do think he's better defensively than Mason Plumlee, I would just rather play the younger guy, especially for a guy that I know is going to be here next year, Nick Richards. I don't know if that's the case with Mason Plumlee. In fact, I'd lean towards it's probably not. So
probably not.
That's I would DNP. I'd give the extra 10 minutes a night to Nick Richards. Like, I'm not only trying to make the play-in, but I'm also trying to develop players for next year. And does Mason Plumlee really get you any closer to the play-in? So what's the point of playing him? It's like the inverse of like, what's the negative of playing Oso?
There's a few games, right, where like I just listed Şengün maybe the odd one here and there where Plumlee you could cook up an argument where he is the better option, but I agree with you. It's like the difference isn't so extreme that I'm going to insult and banish Richards or Oso back to not playing or, whatever, just because of the off chance that maybe some of those bigger centers Plumlee can handle. It's like those guys are going to have to handle big centers. Richards and Oso, that's the job. You don't get, if Oso's going to be a starting caliber center one day, which we think he could be, he's not going to get to take the Şengün nights off. He's got to figure it out, right? Like, he's got to make it happen.
And it's possible too. It's absolutely possible. You can be a little undersized and play well against those guys. You're never going to shut down those guys, but you can do it. I mean, Draymond's made a career out of doing it. Undersized guy, again, that's a Hall of Famer, multiple-time Defensive Player of the Year, but still,
but he's done it.
Like,
the year they won the finals, he shut Jokic down almost in single coverage. So, yeah, maybe you get 60% of the way to Draymond level. You're still doing pretty good for yourself, and Oso's got to figure out how to make up for his lack of size. So what better time than the present to do exactly that? All right. Rockets, Wolves coming up. 2 teams the Suns have had quite a lot of trouble with this season. Can they right those wrongs and get some badly needed wins? We'll talk about it next. Closing out the show. This time, I mean it. Okay, so Friday night, it is the Wolves. Sunday night, it is home against the Rockets. I straight up did not realize that was a home game, so I guess we will be there.
Oh, shoot. That is
just found out what I'm doing on Sunday evening. Thought that was a road game.
Son of a gun.
And so it's 2 teams the Suns have just straight up not really handled well at all this season. And with Houston dating back to last year too, and of course the Wolves in the playoffs last year. So I want to stay with what we said in the first segment, Ben, and honor the fact that we said it's somewhere in the middle and not write these games off. But I'm still worried because these teams sort of fall in that Celtics category with how their rosters are built, where the Suns could really struggle with their size and athleticism and energy.
I don't worry so much about the Rockets in terms of, should the favorite be the Rockets? Do I expect the Rockets to win? Yes. For me, I think I'm curious how they come out against the Wolves, because that's a team that has owned them, and they're coming off of getting their tails kicked in by the Celtics. And if we come off of a Celtics ultimate beatdown, and then the Timberwolves pull another crotch chop This time it'd be in Minneapolis on the Phoenix Suns again, where Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels and whoever it is that's going to be playing, because I'm not so sure about Rudy Gobert. Couldn't find the news on that one.
He's in.
Okay, he is in that game. Okay, so Rudy Gobert as well. Like, I worry about then the Suns going back into old ways if they just get blown out in this game. You got to come out of this stretch 1-1. Preferably, like if I had to pick one, that Rockets one, because it's a home game. I just feel like that's probably the more gettable one. And like those aren't freebies. But overall, I'm more excited. I'm more curious how they're going to look against this Timberwolves team, especially just have to get beaten up by the Celtics, man.
Yeah. Yeah, the Wolves are fully healthy, basically. So Conley's back. He had missed some time. Gobert is in, as I said. I don't know why I thought he was out. And then, Randall and everybody. So I think similar to why we thought the Suns matched up well with Minnesota last year before they all of a sudden very much didn't.
Yeah.
We have seen them be pretty good at isolating the defender that they want to attack. It was Jared Allen against Cleveland. It's been other guys at other points. And so maybe they can manipulate Randall, because I would assume he most likely has to guard Kevin Durant. Now they could just close the game with Naz Reid, and then that kind of goes away. But that is something I'd be curious to see is Randall went off in that game in November, but if he's not as elite on offense and the Suns can kind of go at him on defense, what does that version of the game look like? I think that's what I would be curious about. But Houston is crazy because they were struggling the last time the Suns played them, and they almost beat the Rockets. Almost doesn't really matter, but they did. And then all of a sudden, Fred VanVleet came back, and like everyone thought, they got right back to their winning ways, and they're 9-1 in their past 10. So I have a hard time knowing what to assume there. But I agree, that's if they're going to get one, I still do think it's Houston. But man, it's a bad time to catch these two teams.
What do you think we're talking about on Monday? Do you think on Monday we're talking about play-in watch? They survived the weekend, like Sunday night, I guess I should say. They survived the weekend. They got 1-1, 2-0. Maybe you're feeling really bullish, or do you think you and I are revisiting? Okay, that was fun. Clarity. What are the Suns going to do to fix this mess in the offseason?
I mean, I don't know if we'll go to the offseason, but I think we'll be talking about did we count them into the 10 seed too soon?
That's a much better way to look at it.
Because Dallas has this easy schedule. They play Chicago on Saturday. They play Brooklyn on Monday. They play the freaking Hawks on Wednesday. And that's a little unfair because I'm picking the cakiest part of their last remaining games. They play the Clippers twice, the Lakers, and the Grizzlies down the stretch. So this is really easy. But man, yeah, it might not feel too good.
I think that's what we're talking about. It's a harsh way to end the show, but if we're being fair, most people don't get to the end of podcasts, so maybe we'll get off scot-free here. Mm-hmm. But although I do think the Suns are close to what they were the week and a half, I don't want to get away from that. Houston and the Timberwolves are just bad matchups. I mean, not in the same way that the Celtics are in terms of schematically, but you pointed it out first, man. These young teams that the Suns have to go up and run and gun with, they can't keep up with them.
Yeah,
it's close in the first. Season. Yeah, it's close in the first half, and then they tend to not be able to hold on. So I'm cautiously optimistic because I don't want to go to pessimism just yet.
Well, I'll end on a positive note because the Kings are just crapping all over themselves lately. And so they have lost 4 straight games. Yes, they were to decent teams. They did lose to the Bulls in that mix. And then they have Portland, Orlando, Indiana the next 3. So, that is keeping the Suns afloat as much as anything else. And they do, again, meet on the very final day of the season. So it's not just Dallas. Sacramento is in the mix here now too, and they are not playing great. So we'll see. I'm not writing it in ink, but I'm just nervous because of the matchups, like you said. But that'll wrap us up for the week. We'll be back with you after these 2 games have been played. So hit follow or subscribe, become an everydayer if you have not already. Enjoy the 2 games. Hopefully we all can. And we'll be back here for you either way.